Hi everyone. Welcome to today's What's Working Book Club. We're talking about Dr. Bonni Goldstein's Cannabis is Medicine. We're Coach Chella Canna Guides. I'm Coach Chella.
And I'm Coach Dave.
We're so glad you're here today. Together, we're passionate about helping folks navigate life's toughest challenges with plant-based solutions, compassion, and a lot of heart. For those who don't know, we've been on this journey for over a decade, starting with caring for my mom through her Alzheimer's journey, which inspired everything we do today. Whether it's exploring how cannabis can ease chronic illness, supporting caregivers, or simply creating space for meaningful conversations, we're here to guide and support you. Today's meetup is all about Dr. Bonni Goldstein's Cannabis is Medicine book. It is fantastic. We love this book. It is one of the first books that we read on this subject. We're so excited to dive in and share experiences with you and learn more from one another. So let's get started. I'm so excited to dive into Dr. Bonni Goldstein's Cannabis is Medicine with you all. This book is such a gem. Dr. Goldstein takes all the complex science about how cannabis works and makes it super easy to understand while still backing everything up with solid research. Whether you're brand new to this or you've been exploring plant medicine for a while, there's something in here for everyone. What I love most about this book is how it blends real life stories with the science. Dr. Goldstein's experience working with families, especially kids with epilepsy, and even our family, it really brings the information to life. And she doesn't just stick to one area. She covers everything from managing dementia symptoms to easing cancer treatment side effects and even slowing the progression of neurodegenerative diseases. I've marked some of my favorite sections that I'd love to share with you today, especially in the parts on cancer care, not just for managing pain and nausea, but also some early research on how cannabinoids might actually slow tumor growth in humans. All the studies are currently on animals. There are maybe 2 now that have human subjects. Epilepsy and seizure control with powerful stories of kids whose lives were transformed by CBD-rich oils and even Dave's. So let's jump in. I'll read a few highlights and then we can open it up for discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts and any questions this brings up for you. All right. Dave, do you have anything to say at this time?
One of the things I really love about this book is it's also written in a very approachable manner. It's an excellent book for lay people to read. The first part is basically a primer on the endocannabinoid system and how why cannabis is medicine and how it works generally in the body. And then in the second part, it really is meticulously referenced to what studies, were available at the time, a good selection for a number of different disorders that cannabis can be used for in a number of different forms, whether it's CBD or THC.
Yeah. Or any of the minor cannabinoids. It gets into the minor cannabinoids as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a great book. We really love this book. And we love Dr. Bonni. So Dave started having seizures very suddenly in 2023. He was just walking down the street one day, going to a coffee shop, and the next thing he knows, he was strapped to a gurney in the back of an ambulance. It was a really scary time for us. Dave, why don't you share about epilepsy and our experience with Dr. Bonni?
Yeah, I came on pretty suddenly, and I had 4 seizures over a 6-month period. And 2 of the first people we called when this was happening, and afterwards, the first one was Dr. Dustin Sulak from the ER, and then also Dr. Bonni Goldstein was kind enough to give us because we were associates and friends, really, and she treats has treated older people as well, because we've interviewed her for Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast.
Right.
And she only treats children right now, but she's been an expert on pediatric epilepsy as well as other disorders in kids. And so she gave us a nice consult and gave us recommendations on how and what to use to help control the seizures that I started having from a cavernoma. And so we have been implementing that I am now seizure free for almost 16 months.
16 months today.
today, 16 months today.
Yes.
That's right.
Hmm.
And that also, includes one prescription that I have on a moderate dose on that actually I've been able to lower a little bit. They
Hmm.
wanted to put me on two pharmaceuticals, but I didn't really want to go there. So my second pharmaceutical really became cannabinoids,
Yes.
and we went with the recommendation of approximately 10 milligrams per kilogram of total cannabinoids, including CBD, CBG, and CBDV.
It's 10 milligrams per kilogram of the full spectrum hemp CBD oil, and then 100 milligrams of CBG and 100 milligrams of CBDV in our case.
Specific dosing, yes, that we
Hmm.
use. For convenience, the fact that the CBD comes from Lazarus Naturals, which is a great product, and it's very easily dosable in the soft gels. The CBDV comes from Miriam's Hemp, who carries a number of rare or minor cannabinoids, which
Hmm.
the CBDV was a specific recommendation from Dr. Bonni, because of her clinical work with some of her patients and seeing really good results, which is really all we have. We don't have the trials. All we have is rats, labs, and
Yeah.
case reports from doctors that are willing to share them and people who are willing to talk about their experiences. So, a lot of people are on 2 to 3 to 4 seizure medications and don't have control of things. I'm not sure what the stats are for my specific form of seizure disorder, from the cavernoma, but I am thankfully only on the one. And we're thinking of trying going off of that pharmaceutical maybe when I hit the 2 year mark, weaning it down a little bit more and see if we can just do it on the CBD. But that's to be determined.
Yes.
But
Hopefully, there'll be a case study written about you because there's currently no science on or case studies on cavernoma and cannabinoids.
So
So,
why is this something that we have decided to try to use? Is covered in the chapter part two of Bonnie's book under epilepsy.
mhm,
Talks about the mechanism by which uh, CBD and THC work as an anti-epileptic, anti-convulsant, essentially, as well as a anti-inflammatory, and along with a lot of the studies. And then the digital version, you can click and go right to the studies, which is great. Which you can also do in our book, by the way, our little primer on CBD for seniors. But the part I want to focus on, it talks about THC as an anti-epileptic and CBD. There is some indication that high doses of THC can contribute to seizures. But as I say, it really hasn't been studied that much. But CBD was made a real drug by the FDA for Dravet syndrome, which is a childhood form of intractable epilepsy. So we know, and from the patent, that cannabinoids are anti-inflammatories,
mhm,
as well as neuroprotectants.
mhm,
So it helps during the seizures as well as after the seizure, preventing them, but also protecting the brain during a seizure as well. So that's why it's basically a supplement. And I take a pretty moderate dose, which you should always make sure you keep track of your liver enzymes, because as you get into the higher doses, which is what I take about 1,000 milligrams a day of those cannabinoids. So specifically, it, the part I want to highlight is basically the mechanism of action of why CBD reduces seizures. And this is from the book. The mechanism by which CBD reduces or prevents seizures is not fully understood. Research on this continues in many parts of the world. Remember that CBD targets many different receptors, ion channels, enzymes, and chemical transporters, so there are likely multiple sites in the brain contributing to the anti seizure effects. The following list is what scientists know so far about CBD's anti seizure mechanism of action. And this is discussed in some detail in chapter 4, but here are the bullet points. CBD increases our endocannabinoid levels. We talk about that, how it helps keep anandamide around, and how it creates the calming effect, which in turn decreases the excitatory neurotransmitters and increases inhibitory calming neurotransmitters, leading to a calmer brain and helping to restore homeostasis in the endocannabinoid deficiency states. CBD modulates the flow of ions such as calcium and potassium in neurons, um, which reduces the excitability of neurons, thereby calming the brain. CBD blocks the GPR55 receptor, which results in fewer excitatory neurotransmitters and more of the inhibitory or calming neurotransmitters. And of course, as we know from the patent, CBD decreases neuroinflammation and is neuroprotective. So these are all the reasons why we are finding that a moderate dose of CBD, approximately a little bit more than 10 milligrams per kilogram, but that seems to be the effective dosages between 5 and 10 milligrams per kilogram, and to help calm my brain enough so that I don't continue to have seizures. So we hope to be trying a CBD cannabinoid only protocol maybe later this year. If I continue to be seizure free for a full 2 years, we'll talk about doing that. But I certainly haven't had to add any more drugs or any other pharmaceuticals. Some people are on 4, 2, 3, 4 with no effect. I'm happy to be just on one right now, and my second one being cannabinoids, mostly CBD. So that's why it's working for me, according to Dr. Bonni in Cannabis is Medicine.
And according to Dr. Dan Stein, your cannabis neurologist in Florida, who told you basically the same things.
Right. Exactly. That CBD and all the other cannabinoids, the anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective mechanisms, keeping the transmitters, those excitatory transmitters below a certain level, and keeping you from having seizures, which is what happens in the brain. It's basically your brain gets too excited and those neurons cause problems.
Yeah.
So,
And they don't even know how Keppra works. So
right,
it's,
exactly.
Whatever.
Hey,
And everybody's on it.
they're not sure how CBD works either.
So
So,
that's cool. But we do know that the side effects from CBD are super helpful, like anti-anxiety. There's anti-cancer effects. CBD is amazing. We talked about the benefits of CBD at length when we did our January book club on the Essential Guide to CBD. People can look that up. So of course, epilepsy, the CBD in this book has shown us great benefits of the good plant for people with epilepsy. And of course, March is also TBI, Traumatic Brain Injury Awareness Month. And so I wanted to highlight the part on TBI in Dr. Bonnie's book, which in the paperback book, it can be found on page 270. I like to read from the actual book, but maybe Dave can bring up the traumatic brain injury section. So there's currently no adequate conventional treatment to repair the brain. So if we go to the next page, I'm going to read from when the brain sustains an injury, there's immediate damage to brain cells. This is followed by a secondary response from the immune system, which defends upon the brain to help repair the affected brain cells. However, this response from the immune system includes a release of pro-inflammatory compounds known to contribute to more brain cell injury. Scientists have been searching for a way to improve the beneficial repairing immune response and minimize the unwanted, damaging secondary response. Currently, there are no adequate conventional treatments to do this. And they reference a study about that. The endocannabinoid system and phytocannabinoids may be the answer. So, phytocannabinoids are proven neuroprotective agents with potent anti inflammatory properties. And thus, the use of cannabis is a major focus of investigation for TBI and related neurodegenerative conditions by researchers all over the world. Animal studies are promising and summarized here. So I'm going to skip down to the CBD given immediately after both oxygen and blood flow deprivation reduced brain cell injury, cerebral hemodynamic impairment, brain swelling, and seizures. Motor function and behavior performance were restored within 72 hours after the insult. That is a huge, big, giant deal. And of course, we have a good friend, Nurse Megan from Trusted Canna Nerd, who has shown us a couple of times now, because she has 2 young boys and they get into soccer things and all kinds of sports injuries. And they've had a couple of head injuries. And she has a product that is CBD and CBG that has shown with her children to be very, very helpful when they have had some head injuries and concussion. So we love the good plant for all kinds of brain stuff. We couldn't be more grateful that Dave is 16 months seizure free so far. And we're hoping that with further imaging of Dave's brain, maybe CBDs even help to shrink that cavernoma. We don't know. We're going to find out when we have some more studies, and maybe there'll be a case study on Dave because there are no medicines that are good for cavernoma either. So the good plant is great for all kinds of brain stuff. Of course, we know that it's extremely helpful for Alzheimer's and dementia. We know that in our day-to-day lives and in our past history and with our clients, and of course for cancer as well. At Coachella Canna Guides, we work with a lot of people fighting cancer. And I read this chapter, of course, years ago when the book first came out, but I'd like to read from the book now in the cancer section. The chemotherapy induced nausea and vomiting portion from the New England Journal of Medicine. The THC patients reported that they had less vomiting without any significant side effects. A slew of studies in the 1980s found cannabinoids to be effective for chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting, equal to or better than the antiemetics available at the time, leading to FDA approval of two synthetic THC medications for this indication, dronabinol and nabilone. Overall, patients preferred the cannabinoids over the other medications. We find that often because cannabinoids help with lots of other things. Moving on, the efficacy against nausea and vomiting was dose dependent as higher doses correlated with decreased symptoms. Additionally, oral delivery was compared to inhalation with evidence that inhaled THC was absorbed more reliably. When we have clients who have nausea and vomiting, we usually recommend a layered approach if they're willing to do inhaled for the immediate relief, a little tincture for that extended release, and really to keep it routine in their protocol so that they don't have to deal with it at all. Okay, moving on, back to the book. Under anorexia and weight loss, we know that it's notoriously difficult to alleviate. Cannabinoid receptors play an important role in the desire for food. One of the studies of 18 patients with various cancers who received 2.5 milligrams of synthetic THC 4 times a day, 13 reported improved appetite. However, 7 had side effects, which is not unusual with synthetic THC. It's kind of like a hammer. Synthetic THC is really intense. So it's always helpful for our clients anyway, if we combine it with some botanical CBD or CBG, and then add the THC. If they can only get the synthetic, especially combine it with the CBG. All right, back to the book under cancer pain. So we know that lots of people have pain and cancer, and scrolling down, we scroll down to significant pain release was obtained in cancer patients with higher doses of oral THC versus placebo. Pain relief peaked at 3 hours and was still near maximum 6 hours after the dose. So we always recommend to people that they start low with their THC separate from the CBD and CBG so that they can figure out what is the right dose for them to avoid unwanted effects, but to achieve pain control or appetite or nausea relief. So you'll start really low. You can start with 1 milligram if you want or less, but usually people find the relief around 2.5 milligrams or up to 5 or maybe 10 milligrams at a time. Everybody's different. And don't worry if you're a lot lower or if you're a lot higher. It just depends. All right, back to our book. This whole section, I'm going to read this whole section. Cannabis as a cure for cancer. This is a controversial topic. Since cannabis is classified as a Schedule I controlled substance still, research on the anti-cancer properties in human clinical trials has been prohibited. That's why there aren't any studies, guys, because it's prohibited. It's all on animals and in the lab. So, okay, back to the book. As of the writing of this book, and still, there is one published human trial on cannabis use as an anti cancer compound with a second trial in progress, both in Europe. There exists, however, a significant body of scientific research that shows both THC and CBD, as well as other phytocannabinoids, have anti cancer properties. These compounds cause cancer cells to commit suicide, called apoptosis, inhibit tumor growth, inhibit metastasis and cancer cell migration, and inhibit angiogenesis, which is the growth of blood vessels that feeds tumors. Additionally, research shows that phytocannabinoids can work synergistically with certain chemotherapies and radiation to enhance anti cancer effects. We see this all the time in our clients, all the time. Okay. Moreover, a number of studies document that cannabinoids can attenuate serious side effects from chemotherapy, such as neuropathy. The following is a short list of studies documenting the anti-cancer effects of cannabinoids on specific types of cancer. It's important to note that these are not human trials. A few of the studies I'll highlight: the colorectal cancer study. THC induced apoptosis in colorectal cancer cells through the activation of CB1 cannabinoid receptor, and she noted the study. Since the book was published, though, there's been another study that's super important to highlight, and that's on CBD and CBG. It works even better than THC. So super duper important to note that CBD and CBG works even better in colorectal cancer. So back to our book. Lung cancer. CBD promoted lung cancer cell death through the enhancement of immune cell anti-cancer mechanisms. And she references the study there. And then prostate cancer. CBD induced apoptosis and enhanced the cancer killing of chemotherapy in mice implanted with prostate cancer cells. We see it all the time in our clients. Most of our clients are doing a combination of things because they're usually in late stage. If they're still eligible for chemo, a lot of them are doing chemo. They usually modify their cannabis protocol slightly while they're doing chemo. They drop it down a little bit to more palliative dosing, and then go back to the fighting dosing a couple days after chemo. So that's, but everybody's different. The science is always evolving, so it's important to stay up on those. You can do that with Cannakeys or by scouring PubMed or by working with people like us or Dr. Bonni. We are all pretty well-versed on the current state of cannabis science. Okay, back to the last point I wanted to bring up in this book before we go to your stories. Back to our book is, unfortunately, a few patients who achieved remission with cannabis taken as the only treatment or added to conventional cancer therapy subsequently relapsed when they stopped taking the oil, even years into remission. Because of this, I instruct patients that they may need to be on cannabis oil for life, albeit at lower doses, if it was effective in helping them achieve no evidence of disease status. So we make sure to tell our clients the same information. We make sure that everybody knows that this is an essential nutrient. It's not just for fighting cancer. So if you haven't read Cannabis is Medicine yet, we highly, highly recommend. And we hope that you'll tell us what you think and what your favorite parts are. So indeed, cannabis is medicine, but first it's a nutrient. And of course, it's also fun, and it can be textiles, and it can clean the soil. It can literally save the world. And next month, we are going to be reading another book by Jack Herer, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which tells us all about the different aspects of cannabis.
So enlightening, that book, on so many reasons why this amazing plant that literally do everything was taken away from us.
Yeah,
By
it
the
wasn't
powers that be.
5,000 medicines in 1936.
Well, so
when it was made illegal.
mercury and arsenic were also used back then, but this one definitely was a beneficial one, for sure.
Yeah.
As well as you're right, it was a nutrient. The animals ate it, the people ate it.
Hmm.
They ate hemp porridge 3 times a
Yeah.
week. I've
Yeah.
recently learned
Yeah.
because of its high protein.
It was
Um,
mandatory to grow during the colonies
you
to
could pay your
send hemp back to England.
you could pay your taxes with it.
Yeah. So
uh,
hope you'll join us next month. We hope you enjoyed Dr. Bonnie's book, Cannabis is Medicine. And we hope that you'll join us next month in April to read Jack Herer's The Emperor Wears No Clothes.